Does it feel like you're leaving money on the table? Struggling to increase your productivity and profitability? Check out the Personal Power Transformation Program at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com/transformation and apply for a consultation with Jean Border to get things moving in the right direction. Welcome to another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. It's not just about dreaming. It's about making those dreams a practical reality. Subscribe to us via your favorite network by visiting our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. Now, get ready. Your journey to success starts here.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Jean Border, with the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast. Happy to see everyone here. As a reminder, I've got a freebie out for everyone who's a little bit tense about the, let's call it, economic situation in the world, specifically in the U.S., but anybody who speaks English can take advantage of this. Got a freebie linked in the show notes below. Go to jeanborder.com/vow, VOW. This is an EFT tapping protocol, just a few rounds, maybe 4 rounds, to help calm your nervous system so that you can make good decisions when dealing with money issues in the current environment. If you have any questions, get in touch. I'm happy to answer questions or help you out, but it's a freebie, so take advantage. And now on with the show. I have another really interesting guest. This is Erin Patten, and she is in the metaphysical world, but also in the business world. So it straddles 2 totally different sectors, just like me, who created this podcast to make sense of the 2 me's inside my head, one the healing person and one the business person, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm very happy to have Erin here. Hi.
Hi there, Jean. I'm so honored to be here and really eager to share my story with your listeners, who I believe can, be inspired by the message that I have to give.
Well, cool. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started, where you started from, and where you are today in the business world.
Oh, that's a great question. Because I can tell a long one and I can tell a short one, but I'll give y'all like the medium version.
Okay.
But I love to say that my moniker is I went from Harvard to healing. And I started my young career in New York. I was working in the fashion industry and was really despondent and frustrated with the plateaus I was hitting. Like, I was working in great companies, doing what I thought was very fun work, yet was not progressing, getting promoted. People were getting promoted over me. And I just found myself continually making lateral moves and not really progressing. So I guess like all, quarter life crisis folks do, I decided to apply to Harvard for grad school. And actually, I got rejected the first time I applied. And that was a big wake-up call for me because I kind of had always gotten everything I wanted in life, even hadn't got into Harvard for undergrad. So it just really forced me to start, okay, let me get really focused and try again. So I actually ended up applying both to the business school and the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard to get my MBA and MPP in a dual master's program. And I did this really with the intent to be perceived as someone that was really smart, perceived as someone who was capable of making a lot of money, and really didn't have any other I would say, deeper inspiration for this. I really was out for the external validation and the stamp on my name of approval. And so you can expect someone that's going into something with the intention of getting rich, getting famous, that they're going to feel very empty inside because those goals are very, I would say, intangible. They're just not fulfilling. So by the time I graduated from Harvard, as one would expect, I was incredibly unhappy. I was depressed. I was actually living in Detroit. I moved to Detroit for a fellowship that I got through Harvard at a philanthropic organization. I was in an abusive relationship. I was dealing with health challenges with my family. My dad also was sick. And I just really needed support and had nowhere to go. And this is where I like to always say like my real education began, because I had to start dialing into myself and cultivating a very intentional relationship with God, which I didn't have ever at that point in my life. And so I started doing therapy. I started with therapy. I actually was going to church all the time. I went to Israel. I did the Jesus trek, like literally bathed in the Dead Sea, like at the Mount of Transfiguration. Like I did it all. And little did I know that I was preparing myself for some really tough challenges. Within a few months after that, my father unexpectedly passed away. One of my best friends, who was one of my roommates at a younger age, was on a trip in Jamaica with her family, and she was murdered. And then a few months after that, my mom, due to severe psychosis and grief, attempted suicide. And all the while, I was launching my first company. I was launching a beauty business. And I'm wanting to, go for it and be on top of the world and have my magazine covers and be famous, still going after the same goals, mind you. Hadn't learned my lesson. Yet this was an awakening moment, if you will, from God, from the universe, that I needed to stop. I needed to stop, and I really needed to know even more deeply who I am. And so after that, I moved back to Houston. That's where I'm from originally. I call myself trying to save my mom, but I really was saving my damn self, And my mom actually today, she has dementia, and I'm still her full-time caregiver. But at that time, I decided that I needed to have my own child. So I got pregnant and was taking care of my mom and dealing in another kind of relationship challenge that was not supportive or healthy for me or my family. And this is when I dove even deeper into metaphysical psychology. So I started studying metaphysical psychology, which is the study of my own mind. Psychology traditionally is a study of the mind. Metaphysical psychology is a study of my own mind, really understanding and reckoning with the decisions and choices I had made to create the hell that I was in. Because I couldn't imagine that if we were these great creators, why I was so unhappy, why I was suicidal, why things weren't going my way. How did I create this reality? And really walking through my stories, walking through all that I'm sharing with you today, and looking at it from almost like a third person view, like with no judgment. That's so hard.
As soon as you said that, I'm like, oh no, here we go.
Yeah, that's so hard.
You had a lot of support during that.
Yes, it takes a lot of support, because to get to that kind of hell state, like what I like to call it, where I'm living in constant shame and guilt and anger and frustration, then that you have to have people pouring into you. And people always ask me, Erin, like, how did you, learn what you learn and get your mentors? And I like to say that when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And up until that point, though I had therapy, a lot of my training was self-taught. And I studied metaphysical psychology with Dr. Phil Valentine at the University of Communication Sciences. And then I went on to do yoga teacher training, which was learning more about the integration of the body, mind, and soul. And then I moved on from there to do Tai Chi training, and I became a Tai Chi master, getting my designation in Korea, and really started to unlock these very hidden powers that I had, if you will, because a lot of our superpowers are really masked under all of that guilt and that shame and that resentment that we have for ourselves. So in that process, of course, like the whole world was experiencing a shutdown, a global pandemic. This was in 2020 when I launched my business, my current business, which is a leadership advisory practice where we work very intentionally with senior leaders across organizations, nonprofit, government, business, to support them and really tapping into that hidden potential I was just speaking of by doing very intentional spiritual training, looking at ourselves, looking at our experiences, looking at our emotions, and how we can extract more value from our lives, more pleasure, and more profitability in our organizations.
And the first thing that came to mind when you said that was, and how do you find organizations that are actually open to that kind of work?
Yes.
Because yes, we all want better leaders, but we sure don't want to think it's something inside the person that would, it's just, no, give them more training, give them more training. Well, no, not really.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question because organizations are comprised of individuals. So the work that I do specifically targets the individuals. It targets the men at the top, essentially, the man at the top. And a lot of my clients are men. And actually, my first client was a CEO of Frog Design. And Frog Design is famous for designing Apple's first Macintosh. And they're very well known, particularly in the tech field, design thinking, kind of like IDEO. And they were going through a merger with Capgemini. And interestingly enough, the CEO had written a fictional novel called Journey, a Metaphysical Novel. It was about his own metaphysical experience. Yet, generally, his metaphysical spiritual practice was very separate from his business engagement. And so he brought me in to really start to awaken this sense of energy, of metaphysical practice in the workplace. And I don't want to say that I was the first, but certainly I have been one of the first to really talk about this very openly and directly as the next step, what I call the future of business. If we want to create future compatible businesses, we have to tap into the unseen because so much of our being is not readily visible to the eye.
I have a leadership background, and I can say with utter certainty that there are good leadership structures and bad leadership structures. And if you happen to be in an environment with poor leadership, the organization suffers.
Period.
Yes. And twice I left 6-figure jobs, and twice it was because of leadership. I just walked away. That says a lot. When you've got people in those positions who just say, see ya. You would think that would create this idea that maybe there's something not quite right within me in my dealings with the people below me and the organizational structure. And that's not necessarily seen by the people in those positions. So it's very interesting that you would find people who are actually open to saying, what is it in me that's causing these people to leave, right? What is in me that might be damaging to my organization? It's hard to look at ourselves. That's why you mentioned earlier you did a lot of self-teaching. And when I work with clients, and even with myself, when there are things inside that we don't necessarily want to see yet, when we're doing that work on ourselves, they don't come up. Or they're there, but we don't, no, not today, right? But when we're working with someone else, those things can become more apparent and easier to deal with when we have support.
Mm.
So metaphysics, talk to me about that.
Well, I'd love to define it first for your audience because a lot of people might have heard of it or at least are familiar with meta. And metaphysics is a compound word. Yeah.
Let me throw this out there. Right now, Facebook has got something called Meta, and I don't think that's what we're talking about.
At all. However, it has the same definition. So meta is a Greek word. It denotes to go above or beyond, something of a higher order, if you will. And physics represents the three-dimensional world. So when you put together metaphysics, it invites us to go above and beyond the physical world. And actually, the name of my business is called the Meta Business World because I really am focused, and my vision is to invite folks to go beyond the tangible aspects, the 3D aspects of business, even the financial aspects. Although I know that money is a huge, marker of success, an indicator of success, there are certainly others that are indicators of how well we're doing in life. And so metaphysics is also really representational of the other dimensions, if you will. So we can get into that, since this is one of those types of shows with the energy work, and understanding that, yes, we are these physical beings. We have our physical body, we have our emotional body, and we have our soul, our spirit body. So when we're talking about and tapping into these other 66.6% aspects of ourselves, they are metaphysical. So majority of our beingness is not even seen, yet all we focus on is, how does my butt look? How does my face look? Or do I have wrinkles? Do I have gray hair? We're so focused on this physical aspect of our beingness that we don't even take the time, to your point about leadership, to look at the emotion. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I treating this way? And even beyond that, what is my soul thinking? Am I on my path? Am I really resolving all that I came to earth to do? And this is something too that I know that, to the point about your leadership, you're not being aware. This is really a game of awareness. Metaphysics really represents our awareness. It represents our consciousness. And as conscious beings, we incarnated into these bodies for a purpose, for a reason, and we're going to keep coming back until we resolve that reason. And that's what people may allude to, like, reincarnation or many lifetimes, blah, blah, blah. But, we come back, this energy gets recycled, because just like the law of thermodynamics, energy can never be created nor destroyed. It just is. We are these energetic beings that continue to come back to resolve what we came here to resolve before we go back to our source. And as we're doing that work on our day-to-day, checking in, emails, blah, 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 there also has to be a work on self. And I love to talk about this too, to my clients and to my audiences and my network, that the real work is the self work. The real career is the self-development, because all that we really desire from life can only come from the vibrational frequency that we carry. If we want to be billionaires, trillionaires, we really got to be like it, act like it, think like it, breathe like it, walk like it, talk like it. But many of us don't even know where to begin, because we don't even know who we are. So metaphysics really is a knowing of self. Like, it's so funny because there's so many spiritual paths where they literally are just like, who am I? Like, there's a yogi whose entire mantra is, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And continually asking ourselves and going deeper and deeper into our beings, unlocking that which we truly are. And trust me, it's not going to look the way you think it looks now today. If you haven't already begun that journey, it's going to unfold and be a hell of a roller coaster.
So when you do start working with the client, how do you begin? What's one of the first things you pay attention to when working with a new client?
Oh, that's a really great question. I generally start with assessments and really helping both of us to see who we are. And there are so many different assessment tools out there. I'm actually tweaking some right now, but really are looking more at the deeper aspects, the emotional aspects of our being, and sometimes our soul design. Oftentimes our soul design, actually. And this, I believe, kind of building on my previous point, is essential when getting to know someone, because my whole reason for being in someone's life or being their guide is to help them better see themselves. It's to be a mirror for them. So the first, I would say few sessions, we're really walking through them getting to know themselves and me getting to see themselves in that process. Of course, holding the space for non-judgment and holding the space for challenges and problems to be revealed. And I would say, though, that generally happens for me in like first conversations, because people feel so comfortable with me and safe with me that they really just start to unload. They're like, oh my God, it's just such a safe space. I never get to talk about these things. I mean, we're talking about everything from relationships with spouses to resentment with kids to, issues at work or beef at work, even like little, I don't know, competition, for lack of better words. And so this is really important to understand, to start to create resolution. And I would say the next step after that, kind of getting to know, is looking at sort of inner child stuff. We also look at childhood wounding as well. Some call it inner child trauma work, inner child healing work, because a lot of who we are infinitely, our soul is like a child. It's just so pure and so innocent. And the more that we can create safe space for that little bit of us to flourish, the happier we are. So I like to say that's what I start with.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something that triggered something in my head and it just went away. So I guess it wasn't meant to be talked about. But it was really interesting at the time. Oh, well.
Was it about the inner child stuff or the...
I'll go there. One of the thoughts that came to me is so much of our belief system is built before we understand the world.
Yes.
If our beliefs are created before we're 8 years old, or by the time we're 8 years old, we don't have a full grasp of how the world works, what certain words mean, what phrases mean, what people's expressions mean, the idea of satire, the idea of sarcasm. And so many times I work with people who have made judgments based on events that happened when they were very young that they just didn't understand. And so they made a judgment about that event. And that judgment based on inefficient or insufficient experience or insufficient knowledge is still impacting them in their adult life and in their business. So I think it's important to understand when we uncover beliefs that really are not serving us, or habits that we've fallen into, and we don't know why we keep repeating those patterns, but they just keep happening. And if they show up in this part of your life, chances are they're showing up in multiple aspects of your world.
100%.
I know what it was. When you were talking about when you work with these leaders who need a safe space, sometimes they just need someone safe to vent to, because they live in a world where they have to be on all the time.
Yes.
And everything they say is judged, and every reaction on their face is judged.
Yes.
And so when they have someone totally out of their world who will just let them be, can be such a stress relief.
Yes.
And that's what was coming up that I couldn't remember to say.
I love that you said that. I hope I can just comment on that quickly, because that's exactly what my company, the Meta Business World, is here to I would say eradicate. Because the way we've done business in the past is just not compatible with the future. We can no longer mask how we feel. We can no longer mask who we are. We can no longer compartmentalize our existence. It just doesn't work that way. We have to be able to show up in fullness, even in our workspaces, and be vulnerable, be honest, and fuck up in front of people. It's okay to make a mistake. And it's okay to apologize for that mistake. And it's okay to find resolutions for that mistake. And I've done so many mistakes in my life, like in public, in private, that I really have just gotten comfortable enough to be able to express that to my team. And I always tell my team, it's a team of 4 of us. We're a small organization. Yeah, I'm really honest. We have shares before every meeting, whatever the meeting is, however I'm feeling, whatever I'm going through, I'm bringing it, because if it's not seen, it's felt. So even though you may not be expressing whatever's going wrong in your life, trust me, your team feels it. Like what you say about leadership, how salty they were or mean or whatever the energy was, they weren't telling you what was going on in their lives, but you were feeling it. You were feeling how chaotic and disruptive it was, and you had to get the fuck up out of there. You had to leave. And so it's incumbent upon us as leaders to be very open and honest, because we may think that we're hiding and we have a good poker face, but trust me, the energy is permeating through our organization like a virus, like a cancerous virus. And that's why I call it organizational dis-ease, because the organization is not at ease when the leadership isn't. And so we really have to come into a healing for our organization as individuals, for our organizations, so that we can feel those good vibrations and really access those higher levels of consciousness in our work. We can be more collaborative, more creative. It don't matter if we Black, if we gay, if we woman, if we man. It won't even matter, those things, because we're really bringing ourselves to the table and just allowing things to be.
That organizational dis-ease, I like that term. As a leader in my previous world, I call it, I took it on as my responsibility to protect the people under me from feeling that, from being aware of that. If there was nothing they could change, they didn't need to know it. They didn't need to feel my frustration with higher leadership, right? Because it would serve no purpose. And then when I left, it's like the floodgates opened and they saw the difference, right? Because the person coming in behind me had to learn, right? He didn't have quite the level of experience that I had dealing with these types of situations. And so he didn't understand in all ways how to protect the mindset, the health of the group, of the team. And so just recently, several months back, I actually had dinner with some of my previous employees from multiple locations from my past. And it was very interesting that they all expressed respect for the way I treated them and protected them and kept their organization, the organizational section, healthy, which I found to be very, I'm going to use the word nice. Oh my gosh, I was like floored. I was so happy that they understood now. I mean, they didn't know it at the time, but looking back now, going through different iterations of leadership, they were appreciative of the environment that I created. And that to me was like a big award that I got that night, going out to dinner with these people, you know?
Yes. And I want to congratulate you for that, because what that is essentially is setting healthy boundaries. And as leaders, we have to do that too. As mothers, we have to do it, or as fathers, we have to do it for our children. And unfortunately, the way business is structured now, our subordinates are like our children, which going forward in the future, it won't be that way. People can be more self-managed and self-governed, but right now, that's just how it is. And so being able to set those boundaries of what will explicitly be shared, what won't be shared, that's what I mean in terms of creating that safe space and having that vulnerability and being honest and open. It's also being honest and open with yourself about what cannot be shared and what of myself can I share, and then do I need to protect from as well, because there is a fine line of so many different things. The nuances are what they are, the details are what they are. Yet, I don't want to say we're supposed to just be vulnerable and open about everything. However, being able to be honest is one thing, and being able to set healthy boundaries is another.
And I'm going to take that a step further. I work with a lot of newer healers, newer in business healers, right? And one of the hardest things can be to learn to set boundaries with clients. No, you will not accept texts, at all hours of the day and night and respond to them immediately. You will set office hours and abide by them. You will decide when you're at business and when you're not. When you're at home with your family, it's not the time to be dealing with a client who pesters you all the time just because you respond so quickly, and nobody else will do that for them, right? Mm-hmm. So determining how you want to structure your business, yes, you make adjustments along the way, but being very firm with yourself sometimes can be hard. So understanding what is your priority, why are you even in business, why did you start this business, these are my office hours and these are not. That can be a very stressful experience for people just starting into the business world.
Yeah. And I think that just comes with time because we all have challenges, particularly when we're going on this healing journey, saying no. We've been conditioned to people please, particularly if you're a healer and you've been called for healing work, you want to help people. Like this has been what you've done all your whole life. So when you're helping someone and they're reaching out to you for help and you're not there, that feels bad. I already know. So it's really about then how do I honor myself? And then who comes first in all of the things that I'm doing? Always the self comes first, even before the children, even before the spouse, even before the job. I mean, absolutely before the career. And if you're feeling like you're being dishonored and responding 5 minutes after someone texts you, then you have to look at that and say, like, how can I better honor myself in these situations? And I'm still navigating that. I'm still navigating the communication situation, not just with clients, but with people I'm dating, but with family members, with friends. I just have to move with what feels right for me. And, and setting those boundaries accordingly. Like there was a time in my life, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it, where like ghosting people was just the best that I could do. Like I just stopped talking. I didn't really have the capacity to say no. I didn't have the capacity to say why I was saying no. I didn't have the words or the energy or the emotions to do it. Now, like I'm much more in a place to communicate, like to say things, what I don't like, what I do like. And it may not always come out perfect, but it is much better than saying nothing at all. So I feel like we just have to honor where we are in our journey. And again, I'm going to always kind of come back to this, is releasing the judgment around whatever it is. So you do answer the midnight text. Okay, don't beat yourself up over it. Okay. Like that's really the key, is just how do you continue to honor yourself and love yourself despite the decisions you make, whether you feel like it was a mistake or not. And that is the work.
And that is the hard part. Because self-judgment is what we do.
Yes, very well. Very well.
All the time. Well, I should have done
ourselves names.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just like, we call ourselves names like, oh, I'm so stupid, or, I made that mistake, or we stub our toe, and God forbid we stub our toe. Like we're cursing ourselves out. Like, we have to move through life perfectly. I don't know who created that program, but when I tell you it holds you down, it holds us back. And we really have to be almost in this state of constant forgiveness of ourselves. Forget everybody else, asking for forgiveness for debts to anybody else. It's really our debt to ourselves. And constantly just forgiving and grace. How much grace? I need more grace for myself. And these are two words that I even working through my own, journey, want to continue to embody a bit more, is that self-grace.
It's very easy to fall into the trap of focusing on the past, which cannot be changed, no matter how many times you imagine it differently in your head, no matter how many times you make this decision versus that decision in your head, no matter how many times you say, well, if this had happened, then this would be my current reality. Nothing changes. The only thing that you have control over is the action you take today to make something different than what it is right at this moment.
Yeah.
And you also have the choice not to make a choice. You mentioned that sometimes the best you could do was just to ignore everything going on around you. And sometimes that is what we have to do, just to get through whatever we're working through at that moment. And that's okay. But then we beat ourselves up. Well, they probably wanted this from me and I didn't do it. Well, you didn't do it. And so therefore, did the world keep turning? Did they go do whatever they were going to do anyway? Right? We don't look at necessarily the degree of impact. We just look at it as a major impact, whether it was or not.
Yes.
So being okay with the best we could do at that moment is helpful sometimes.
And sometimes it takes time being okay, because I've gone through situations where I'm like crying about it, or I'm completely like broken, and this is stuff still happening today, because even though you're on a healing journey, even though you're on this energy journey, this metaphysical journey, it doesn't make problems go away. They just get easier to manage and feel into and deal with. Yet, if anything, sometimes it gets even more challenging. It's like a video game. Like, we signed up for this. It's crazy, but we did. So as we're walking through these challenges, and if you're feeling yourself saying, I'm doing my best, but I feel so much like crap in the process, then how can you nurture yourself? Like, for me, I have to come back to those things, and they're always so basic, but it's like taking a bubble bath with Dead Sea salt, going for a walk in my favorite park. It's listening to my music and my affirmations and dancing in the shower. It's like eating some yummy fruits, because like I'm on a diet. So it's like I can't go to the junk foods or the wine or the alcohol, like I used to. So it's like, okay, so how do I, you know, create higher experiences for these lower emotions to be nurtured? It's like imagining, like we said, the inner child work, like you're holding your little baby self. And it's interesting, because now that I'm a mother, I realized how little nurturing energy I had in my being until I started doing more healing work. But now that I have my 4-year-old, like, I'm still sometimes rocking him like a baby, and he asks me for it, and I'm so grateful that he has the words and the ability to ask for what he needs. Because that's sometimes what our being is doing when we're sad, or when we're depressed, or when we're unhappy. It's asking you for love. It's just asking you to stop and see me. Mommy, look at me. Mommy, look at me. I can hear my son say it all the time. Look at me, hold me, hug me. Like, our bodies are doing the same thing, yet it comes out in pains and aches and tears. And all our body wants us to do is really just sit with ourselves and love on ourselves. And that's part of the work too.
In my world, the first thing that's required for any movement, any change, is awareness. Becoming aware that something doesn't feel right, or that something feels really, really good, or that something feels off, or something feels fantastic, but becoming aware of what you do want in life, what you don't want. In business, what hours you do want to work and don't want to work, what types of clients you do and don't want to work with. Awareness is a very big deal. And then focusing on what it is that you're truly drawn to, and then actually taking some kind of strategic action to move you towards that, even if it's just a little tiny step every day.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't start to take some kind of action to move you towards what you desire, how do you expect to get there?
Right.
So talk to me about why you think, or if you think, the metaphysical work is so important now in the business world.
Why? Why is metaphysics important to business today? Well, there's several reasons.
That's a huge question, I know.
Yeah, actually, it's one that I answer a lot in my decks and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And I usually have like site sources and all these things, but I want to do something better than that. I want to do something a little more personal than that, because metaphysics is important to business today because of who we're being called to be. And business leaders generally have been called to do one thing, and that's honor their fiduciary duty. Honor their duty to their shareholders to make them more money. And I was taught this in business school, and it fucked with me then, and it still fucks with me now. I just didn't understand my emotions back then. I just was trying to get through. Okay. But we as business leaders are societal leaders. We're family leaders, familial leaders. We're leaders in our friendships. We're leaders in a holistic view, and to limit ourselves, confine ourselves to one success metric is ludicrous and really unrealistic, because we aren't allowing, again, the full potential of ourselves to be utilized. It's one-dimensional, literally one aspect. And we already know that we're moving into an age, or we have begun already moving into an age, the age of Aquarius, where we're tapping into 5D energy, 5 dimensions, and we're still operating on a single one. Then look at all of this opportunity that we're losing out on. Look at all of the experiences that we're losing out on by focusing on one singular thing. So for me, the metaphysical aspect to business is what's going to get us into the future where we see like flying cars and crystal cities. And how else are we going to get there if we don't start thinking outside of the one box of money, the one box of Wall Street, or the one box of stocks and shareholders? That fundamentally is failing us. It's completely chaotic, and it's never consistent, and it's always up and down, and everyone's always jumping out of windows, metaphorically. And at one point they were physically, figuratively, really in reality. And if we want to take advantage of this amazing energy that's moving into the planet at this time, then we have to awaken to these metaphysical aspects of ourselves. In the metaphysical aspect of tools, of crystals, of pendulums and healers and energy and Reiki and acupuncture and all these very ancient ways of existing that created things like pyramids and crystal cities. I mean, they were once here. And so for me, I've always dreamt of being incredibly wealthy from a very young age. It's so funny because someone just tagged me on Instagram a few days ago, in 8th grade, most likely to be Oprah Winfrey. I was voted.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Literally the picture, and I'm like holding all this money, and I'm like 12, 13 years old. And so it reminded me that this calling has been on me from a young age. And when I was a little girl, I dreamed of being a businesswoman and walking in my heels and making a lot of money. But then the path that I was taking to get there, like going to business school, undergrad, I went to honors business school at UT and Macomb School of Business. I worked in business, and then I went to HBS. It did not feel aligned with me. I was so unhappy because I forgot who I was in the process. That's the metaphysics. Who you are cannot be seen. Who you are is occupying all of this space, but it's just manifesting in this physical form. And when we forget who we are, we can't do business the way we're supposed to. We're just doing it like they want us to. And who are they? We don't have to get into that discussion today, but who are they? They don't have the same morals and values and intentions that we do. And at least not that I do. And so I want to do business my way. So if I want to do it my way, then I got to tap into higher energies. I got to tap into powers that are greater than me, because I can't do this shit alone. Where I want to go, I always say I'm talking about building up trillionaires. We see the billionaires today, they're disgusting. So if they can be billionaires being disgusting, evil people, then why can't I be a trillionaire honoring God? And this is what I firmly, fundamentally believe in and what I teach. There is nothing to fear about money. There's nothing to fear about wealth. There is nothing to fear about the journey and getting there, but we have to know who we are and honor who we are in the process. And that's why I believe metaphysics is important for business.
Cool. And you made a very good point. And I'm going to expand in my world.
Yes.
Money is just energy. It's not good. It's not bad. What's good or bad is what you do with what you have.
Yes.
If you hoard it, what good does it do?
Mm-hmm.
If you use it for something terrible, then yes, you're one of the terrible people who set that idea that rich people are greedy and money is evil and all that. But if you use it to fund a rescue organization, now is it good or is it bad that you had the money?
Right.
Right? if you use it to support your family, if you use it to feed people who have been displaced from the people in those organizations you were just mentioning, right? Because it didn't fit the bottom line, so they just cut them loose and people had nowhere to go, so they're living in tents, right? Money is not in and of itself good or bad. You get to decide what intent you give the money, what you utilize the money for. Is that good or bad? Does that create good or bad emotions in people? So if you want to be able to control how money is used, you need to be open to having more money, creating more money.
Yes.
And then allowing it to come in and allowing it to go out in a continual ebb and flow, right? So everything stays in balance and you use it for something good and more money will come back to you to be used for something good. But if you become afraid of money or what money will turn you into, I suggest maybe explore that belief a little bit.
Yeah.
How would money turn you into something different than what you are already inside? You get the choice. I'm big on choice and decision. You get a choice, but you have to decide. Is it okay for money to come to me so I can use it for good? Or is that too scary? And so I think some people get stuck in that world. It's too scary for the money to come to me. Even if I really kind of want to do something good with it, I can see where it would happen. That's just a belief that some people create over time. Again, maybe it started when they were young and they saw how money was vilified, or certain people were vilified with, and they happen to have money. What are your beliefs around money, right? Something to become aware of. I'm big on awareness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And asking those questions of self, like that was such a great reminder, a recommendation to your audience listeners, is just question yourself, get curious with yourself, get curious with those beliefs that are uncomfortable for you. Because if you have difficulty talking about it with yourself, then you're likely going to have difficulty talking about it with your spouse, with your organization. So you have to get comfortable asking yourself these hard questions.
And decide how you want your organization to run too. What type of energy you want within your organization and what you want the focus to be. Because if you don't know, how are your employees going to know?
Yes.
So we're running up on the end of our time together, unfortunately. But you have a masterclass you're offering to our listeners. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm happy to. So I have a masterclass that's very relevant to what we've been sharing today called Visualize to Actualize. And part of getting to know who we are is seeing who we are and where we want to go. And so this masterclass really builds upon tools, meditations, and really evidence around why being able to see and visualize is the key to manifesting and actualizing your dreams. So we're going to include the link to this masterclass and be on the lookout for more masterclasses to come because there's just so much in store for the meta business world.
Cool. And the links will be down below in the show notes for those of you who just want to click on the link. Also, all of your website information will be there as well. So
ErinPatten.com.
Yeah. So just click on the links if you want to engage more with Erin. Any final thoughts you might have for our listeners?
Yes. I love to say this, and it's my favorite quote, and it's very simple. Change your energy, change your life. And I'll say that again. Change your energy, change your life. We spoke a lot today about consciousness. We spoke a lot today about awareness and metaphysics. And those are all just synonyms for energy and emotions. So the more you focus on your emotions, the more you focus on your energy, the higher you'll go and the more value and wealth you'll experience out of your life, fulfillment out of your life.
Totally agree. And so for my listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank Erin so much for this really interesting conversation. I meet the greatest people and have the greatest conversations on on these podcasts.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I want to thank everyone once again for being here, for tuning in, for being open to new ideas, new experiences. Until next time, this is Jean Border with the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast.
Thank you.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast. Energy work to better your business. Hosted by energy healer Jean Border. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey.